Every year, we like to cover a classic type of monster for a Halloween video, so what spooky topic should we cover this year?
You know, Mr. Top 10 List, one would be a great one? Pumpkins.
We did that in 2015.
Skeletons?
2014, and the viewers can read the title of the video before they click on it. They know what we're gonna pick.
We can't do skeletons. What's another classic monster? I don't know. Werewolves? Have we done werewolves?
That's right, werewolves are this year's Halloween monster theme. The creature that is human by day and wolf by night, either quadrupedal or bipedal. But regardless, they are now an animal-like monster that has the ferocity of a wolf, but the backstory of a human. With how commonly this monster appears in all media, we decided to narrow down this topic to just video games, since a lot of video games like to recruit werewolves to hang out with the heroes or villains. They're versatile. No real restrictions for this list outside of these characters or groups of characters being defined as werewolves or basically a werewolf, since sometimes series like to make up their own terms for creatures that already exist. Now these characters don't have to transform on screen to prove their werewolfiness, but we still appreciate a good transformation sequence if it's there. And since Halloween is always more fun with friends, I'll be joined by my co-hosts NegetiveX.
Hello, everybody. Nice to... Sorry, I was trying to do like a pun and do a werewolf howl, but I lost it. I had nothing. I should have planned that out better, and I want you to include all of that in there.
And Papa Goose.
People always say werewolf, but they never ask how wolf.
Now, let's howl with the top 10 werewolves in video games. Number 10, the guys from Altered Beast. Altered Beast is a video game in its purest form, as in you just do random video game things in it. You have a couple of characters that beat up random enemies and bosses of varying sizes and skills, and you get power-ups and transformations along the way, but there's no real consistency to the aesthetics, I feel. It's just to beat 'em up with whatever crazy ideas the developers could come up with. Why you gotta transform into a wolf to get a fireball? Who knows? This was a launch title for the Sega Genesis, ported over from its arcade version, so the game did a good job of showing us the capabilities of both arcade games and home consoles at the time. As you fight enemies, your buff dude character turns into a beefier dude with power-ups, and when he goes one step beyond, he transforms into a werebeast of sorts. The first level's transformation is a werewolf, and to go with the theme of the game just throwing everything possible at you, you get generic video game power-ups with it. Projectiles, flying kicks, nothing that is specific to being a werewolf generally, but it comes with it in this universe.
This game is good because you first have to get naked, and then get progressively naked-er, and then you become a werewolf. So you're aware you lost your clothes before it happens.
I think my favorite part about this guy is that he can fly around wait, you can do flying kicks?
That's one of his basic moves. You guys did a full playthrough of this game on your Twitch channel. How did you not figure that out?
It's Wolf O'Clock, baby.
No wonder we had to hit the continue button a million times.
Yeah, geez.
Despite how random we made this game sound, it does have a plot, where you're in ancient Greece, and your characters are chosen by Zeus to rescue Athena from Neph, the ruler of the underworld, and everyone you fight along the way are the various servants of Neph. And then you learn at the end that the whole thing was a theatrical play the whole time.
Oh, the pigeon's free! Bro, we saved the pigeon! Classic.
We saved the pigeon.
You're an actor playing a guy who can turn into a wolf, as well as a dragon, and a bear, and a tiger, and also a gold wolf, because clearly they ran out of ideas 4 levels in.
The Greek theme explains the backgrounds, but I still feel the game embraces random enemies over accurate mythology, which I'm fine with, like a boss is a big demon guy who throws his regenerating head at you. Not in my Greek history books, but it sure is fun to look at. Number 9, Ralph from Rampage. Rampage is the classic video game series where you're a giant monster and you just get to destroy the city and eat things. Your main enemies are people shooting at you since you're a giant monster. It's a pretty understandable conflict. While the other main monsters in the original game are based on classic giant monsters, i.e. King Kong and Godzilla, Ralph is just a giant werewolf who doesn't seem to be based on any known giant monsters, which I think is cool. A fully original original character.
Basically, the plot of the Rampage games is that there's an evil corporation that's, doing some experiments and creates these giant monsters, so these giant monsters escape. You, as the giant monster, are trying to go and basically destroy the town and whatnot. In Rampage World Tour, the later game, all of the original 3 monsters are captured, so you play as a whole set of new monsters that are created and try to actually save the old monsters. So if you fight your way through London is where you'll actually be able to unlock Ralph.
So you gotta get Werewolves in London?
I know what everyone was thinking here. Like, man, I hope they talks about Werewolves in London. I know it's not a video game, but here it is. Oh my god, I can't believe he's a werewolf in London. God, we nailed it. We cracked the system. We see you developers. We know what you're doing.
Where did you find him? That's the where part. Where do you gotta go to get him?
Rampage is basically just, what giant monsters can we make that are legally distinct? How do we make a legally distinct werewolf in London? Ooh, make him big.
With there being multiple Rampage games, Ralph has a few different backstories. Some games, he's a human bystander who eats a mutant food additive. In other games, he's a scientist who is caught in a chemical explosion. But either way, the end result is him turning into a giant werewolf who just wants to smash the city.
Also, in these games, you can actually find, like, radioactive material, and you can eat. After you eat this radioactive material, you become like a little demon that can fly around. So you think about it, it's kind of like being a double werewolf, because you're a man transformed into a giant werewolf, transformed into a flying demon. That's a werewolf squared, baby. I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there. The way my knees are going, if you said, hey, we're gonna turn you into a giant monster, but your knees are gonna work fine, I'm gonna be jumping on all sorts of buildings, because my knees are gonna not hurt. It's gonna be great. Be like I'm young again.
So you like this werewolf because he reminds you what it's like to have knees?
Number 8, Brad Fang from Contra Hard Corps. Contra has always been that big shoot-'em-up game series with all kinds of firearms where you take down giant aliens, so it's always been over the top. But in Hard Corps, I feel like they really embraced their 90s extreme attitude with Brad Fang. He was one of the various warriors you could pick to play as, and he felt the most over-the-top in the game compared to the other still over-the-top characters.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, because in this game you got generic man, generic woman, robot, and werewolf with machine gun arm. And he's so cool. He always is wearing sunglasses, even at night, because the sun never sets on a badass.
It's not just the fact that he's a werewolf with sunglasses and denim jeans wielding a machine gun, his arm is the machine gun. He's also a cyborg. His metal arms are capable of producing fire in many ways. He's not the most lore-heavy character though. We just know that he's a genetically modified being who was recruited to take out the impending threats in the year 2681. So basically, mega future technology that doesn't need to make sense in the end.
And the werewolf doesn't play a big part in this. You're fighting aliens, and it's not like they're like, oh my god, a werewolf. He's just kind of a werewolf wearing pants. No shirt, but pants. You think if he was an elite military uniform, they'd make him wear a shirt or something like that, but nope, just pants.
Werewolves don't need a shirt when you have this much fur!
Number 7, the companions from Whiterun in Skyrim. There's not one werewolf of note in Skyrim, but many of them. There's a pack of werewolves that can teach you how to use their werewolf powers, if you so desire, but there are some secrets you have to uncover first.
So in Skyrim, when you're approaching Whiterun, you can actually find a bunch of people killing a giant. And when you go and ask what's going on, they end up inviting you to join the companions. Eventually, they let you into the group's little secret that they're all actually werewolves, and they invite you to become one themselves. So after you become a werewolf, you end up fighting the Silver Hand, which are basically the nemesis to the companions, because the Silver Hand want to kill all werewolves for some reason. I don't know, they love silver or something like that.
They sure do. Every one of their swords are made out of silver. So I come in and rob them.
So whenever you go into their bases or things like that, where most of the missions take place, you're actually going to find a lot of caged werewolves and a bunch of dead ones. Wanna know who my favorite werewolf is probably in the game? It's one that you end up finding in a cage. And you think, you're a werewolf, he's been captured, you're going to release him and he's going to do good stuff. As soon as you release him, he tries to kill you. That's my favorite werewolf, because he's living his best life. He's just killing anything that does it. The man who frees him from a cage? Yep, I'm going to kill you, just as I will everything else. You're lucky they left me in here. So eventually the Silver Hand end up attacking the main base and kill the leader of the companions. As these levels progress, as you talk more to these characters, you start to learn that a lot of them actually don't want to be werewolves anymore, because they're not going to be able to go to the same ancestral homeland as everyone else that they know. They're going to end up going into the hunting grounds where they're going to live for eternity hunting, which, you know, sounds pretty cool to some of them.
Well, they're beasts. They're gonna get hunted.
Oh, I thought they were doing the hunting.
You would think, wouldn't you? But if you're going into the ancient hunting grounds and you're a beast, I don't think the odds are good for you.
So the final missions of this actual quest are actually trying to cure the werewolfism from the white mane who died, from Kodlak Whitemane. But you can actually do this for all of the characters, except for Ayla. She is happy to be a werewolf, which is why I think she's the best werewolf character in this, because there are like many werewolves in this whole guild. I think she's definitely the best, because she's the only one who doesn't regret being a werewolf. She's your bro. She doesn't want to stop being a werewolf. She loves hunting. She's the one who kills the giant. She's the one who invites you about this.
And she's the one going around turning people into werewolves by making them drink up her blood.
It's kind of funny though, because as you play the game, at first they're like, yeah, being a werewolf is cool. And then you like cure the dead guy, and then they're like, hey, psst, I decided I don't want to do this anymore. This wasn't the job interview I thought it would be.
Hey, could you cure me too, bro? I want to be a vampire.
You know, when you become the werewolf, the abilities of the werewolf are pretty underwhelming to me. Like, I'm never going into a fight like, man, I should turn into a werewolf right now because this will really help me even the odds. I only ever do it when I'm just trying to run someplace quick. Because, you know, I can get there faster because they run forever.
Number 6, Valkenhayn from BlazBlue. Valkenhayn is a butler werewolf who fights chaos. That's all you really need to know. But if you want to know more, he's mostly here for his creativity with all the werewolfing. He's mastered his werewolf transformation so much that he can just concentrate parts of his body to transform when he needs to attack. He can surround his arm or leg in werewolf energy if he doesn't want to get too vicious. He can even just turn his head into a wolf to make him look like the classiest wolf on this side of the dimension. Though he can go full wolf if he needs to. The aesthetics when he does that are pretty cool, where the ribbon that he wears around his hair is now tied to his tail, which was actually a gift given to him by Rachel Alucard, the 2,000-year-old vampire that he works for, who also had like 4 other entries on other lists of mine.
So the back of his head becomes his tail. Here I would have thought it would have been his butt, but you know, what do I know?
He's got a cute little bow. Oh, and he kicked that lady's butt.
There's a cute little bow. It's even cute when he's a human. Hit me up, what's his name? I like a man with a job. He's married to his work though. Being a butler's a full-time job.
Oh, he kicked that dude's butt.
Another cool thing about his wolf form is his silver fur used to be brown like his normal hair when he was young, so it grays with age like him. And while he's mostly a quadrupedal wolf, he'll occasionally show some bipedal skills like a classic werewolf. And whenever he pulls out the bipedal form, the full moon always finds a way to sneak in the background shortly after. What a coincidence how that works. Number 5, one of the werewolves from the Castlevania series. Looks like Castlevania's 2-year streak of getting number 1 on my Halloween lists is over, but at least it keeps a 3-year streak of making a Halloween video. If they're a classic monster in horror, Castlevania has made them an enemy, and werewolves are no exception. With the various werewolves in Castlevania, my choice would be going with good old Symphony of the Night. The main werewolf boss in that game may have not had much of a personality, but he makes for a good fight. When Alucard encounters Richter for the first time, Richter challenges him to face 2 strong minions to survive his castle, one of which is an unnamed werewolf. This guy has a whole bunch of attacks. He can charge at you, he can do an energy fist, he has a boomerang energy ball, he can even just Blanca ball at you, and if he wants to, he'll land like an anime character to create a shockwave. They just threw everything into this character. I'm glad Coach Soldier Wolfbark has been consistently getting work.
I want him to look like a werewolf. He looks like a hyena.
Dumb baby idiot.
I mean, you know this werewolf has to be a pretty cool guy because he's hanging out with a minotaur. It takes a pretty cool dude to hang out with someone so bullheaded. Get it? Bullheaded? He's got a bull for a head, and he's got it. Yeah, you get it?
Yeah, I got it.
You got it? Do you want me to say it again and louder? Would that make you laugh? We could also go with Cornell, a different werewolf from the game Castlevania Legacy of Darkness on the N64, where you're actually playing the main character, where you can turn into the werewolf. One major problem about this, though, I do not own that game, and I do not believe you own that game, Mr. Top 10 List, so from this point on, we'll pretend it doesn't exist.
Can do. Man, I wish there was a Castlevania game on the N64. The only notable werewolf I know about is in Symphony of the Night.
As much as I love this boss fight, I don't think this should be the one that we use, because, you know, it's kind of more of a generic fight. I think for the best werewolf in the Castlevania series, you kind of have to go to the reboot of the Castlevania series, Castlevania The Lords of Shadow. So in Castlevania Lords of Shadow, there are basically 3 evil lords. You have Cornell, who is the king of the Lycans, you got a vampire person, and then you got like a zombie dead person, you know, some other guy. He's very deep into the game. The basic plot revolves around your character going out and having his wife die, tragically. So now he's going to try to bring her back. And he meets up with a man that tells him that in order to do this, if he slays the Lords of Shadow, he will be able to bring back his wife. So that's what you do. You end up meeting Cornell on a nice little island where the boss fight takes place, and he actually has a long conversation with you, and he explains that basically, like, there are 3 founding members of your order that were so good they essentially ascended to heaven. Their souls that were left behind became the Lords of Shadow, which became these guys. So you're essentially, when you fight this guy, you're fighting one of the founders of your organization, or at least his old body. So in a very basic way, by fighting and killing Cornell, you are, you know, killing the founders of your order.
You're fighting the CEO? That's gonna get you fired, bro.
I mean, not if you win.
That's true. It's your word against his.
But yeah, he does basic werewolf stuff in the fight. He starts out as human form with a hammer. Once you get him down to half health, he ends up becoming a giant werewolf.
Look at him. I wouldn't want to fight him.
And eventually in the fight, to beat him, you have to actually go around and destroy all the different towers that are around the arena. That's the only way that you can do damage to him. And when you defeat him, you end up getting some new abilities, which are always pretty cool. And yeah, you end up moving on from there to the vampires.
What do you ultimately use to defeat him?
So yeah, you actually end up killing him with his own hammer, just to show him what's what. Unless you miss the quick time event, then you die.
How'd you know about that?
Because I'm willing to go to all levels to get the footage that we need.
Oh, I just thought it was because you lost to him a lot.
Yes, I did. It was like literally on the last hit too.
Number 4, Link from The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. We have one of the most iconic video game characters ever here, and would you look at that, he was a werewolf at one point. Each iteration of Link is essentially a different universe in Legend of Zelda, so Link hasn't always been able to transform into a wolf, and he probably can't anywhere else. This version of the Triforce gives Link the power to transform into a wolf, since it's the divine beast of legend that is supposed to save the Twilight race from their imprisonment in another dimension. We learn all this from the Twilight that we encounter named Midna, who sees Link when he transforms into a wolf for the first time and is like, there he is, that's my guy. She partners up with Link to help save her people, but also insults Link throughout their time together if he's not moving fast enough for her, which is all the time, since she likes to treat her friends that way, but I guess Link had to meet his first tsundere someday. At least she gives Link reason to help her by freeing him from prison when he's captured by some enemies after his first wolf transformation, which overwhelmed him to a point where he passed out and could not defend himself.
And he passes out from it? Oh, what's the point of transforming?
He's just getting dragged off. This is the worst.
The point of becoming a werewolf is you can fight off the threats, not fall asleep and get dragged into the lair.
Give him a break. He was inexperienced at the time, and he's only a kid, or teen. Young adult? Just cut him some slack. Wolf Link is used for solving puzzles mostly. Yes, he has the ferocity of a wolf, which is still good for fighting, but he shines in the athleticism department. He's able to run faster and navigate some tight spots, like rope bridges, and he has some enhanced senses, letting him sniff out where some hidden items or passageways are. Plus, Midna can now ride on his back easily to lead him to places and help out with puzzles, creating the ultimate tag team. Number 3, Father Gascione from Bloodborne. With Bloodborne being a gothic-style fantasy game with plenty of horrific creatures, werewolves are a must, and you have some common enemy werewolves to take down. But the one werewolf with the most backstory, and a tragic one at that, is Father Gascione.
So Father Gascione is actually the first required boss in the game. While you do run into the cleric beast beforehand, he's an optional boss and you don't actually have to find him. And Father Gascione is actually kind of a really tragic character in a lot of ways, because he, like yourself, is a hunter. He's going out fighting the demons. Like everything in Bloodborne, though, it gets pretty dark, and he eventually ends up succumbing to the bloodlust and becoming the monster, the very type of monster that he was trying to fight. It gets even more tragic because you actually run into his daughter earlier in Central Yarnum, and when you talk to her, she's basically like, my father's ran off, my mother went off to try to find him, but she hasn't come back yet, and she ends up giving you a little music box that her mom used to play Father Gascione to try to calm him down and everything like that. And considering everyone in this town is trying to kill you, having a friendly face is really nice.
Well, you can't really tell, but she sounds really nice through that window.
So armed with this, you go out into the world, hoping that you can find him. So you end up fighting him, and during the boss fight, if you play the music box, he'll actually stop and kind of doing it. And other than that, he does basic werewolf stuff. He starts out as a human. As you fight him, he gets angrier and angrier, eventually turns into something like a werewolf, although I don't think in this universe they're technically called werewolves.
He is vicious. He will not give up. He's a fairly scary werewolf, but he's also fairly scary human. I almost think that he is like less scary as a werewolf because he's easier to track.
That being said, Father Gascione's wife never reappears, so if the fight ends with you killing him and the mother never shows up again, what does that mean for this little girl's parents?
Bloodborne is a very sad game. I don't think there's a shred of happiness in Bloodborne.
Man, I was hoping this would be a funnier entry. I don't know, put on some like yakety sax on it. That'll do it. Do 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 do.
Number 2, John Talbane from Darkstalkers. Talbane is a kung fu werewolf. In a regular fighting game, his moveset would actually be pretty standard, with kicks, rushdown, aura, and nunchucks. But in a game like Darkstalkers, where no one is a standard martial artist, he's unique for being one of the few guys with some hand-to-hand combat training, rather than only relying on supernatural instincts. That being said, he's still a werewolf. He'll go feral when he needs to, for a combination of sophisticated martial arts and animalistic attacks. For me, the most fun way to play Talbane is just by flying/jumping all over the stage. His wolf legs have some spring in them since he just keeps going, and then he takes a break from that to fire a dragon at you. Forget about the wolf, what school did he train at to learn that technique? He also pulls nunchaku out of nowhere for some quick strikes before swiftly putting them away, which begs the question, where did he store them? Probably his puffy pants. There's enough room in there without questioning the law of conservation of mass.
He actually has a hobby outside of being a werewolf. He's doing kung fu. He's taking classes at the Y.
Could you imagine taking classes at the Y with him? What does it smell like dog over here?
Oh god, I have to spar against this guy? He's a werewolf! This isn't fair. Don't worry, he's gonna have the nunchucks too. He won't put them down.
You can handle the nunchucks.
Don't forget to bow to your partner. He's already bowing. He's on all fours, because he's a wolf.
Tell him not to bite me. He's looking at me like I'm his dinner.
Listen, man, you're a black belt. He's only a yellow belt. You can handle this. Can I? He's a werewolf.
He also only wears his human pants when in his werewolf form, but we do know he has a shirt. Occasionally we'll get to see his fully dressed human form before a fight. Story-wise, when we see him in his werewolf form, it's because he's stuck in it with no knowledge of how to transform back. In the first game, and by extension the second, he learned that his father was a werewolf who was absent for all of his life. Talbane was used to being on his own since his mother died shortly after he was born, so his only goal at this time was to survive in this anti-werewolf world and not let the animal take over. Luckily, Talbane is strong-willed and only needs to worry about turning into a werewolf every once in a while. Specifically, it happens whenever there's a new Darkstalkers game, which unfortunately for us is an undetermined amount of time between each entry. Honorable mentions: Saberwolf from Killer Instinct. Saberwolf is a classic story of a man trying to take control of the beast inside him. We only ever see Saberwolf in his werewolf form, but he does have some backstory on why he's stuck that way, all linked back to the villainous organization Ultratech, who experimented on him, forcing him to stay in his werewolf form nearly all the time, for science. That being said, solid rushdown moves. The Lycans from Resident Evil Village. These are probably the most human-looking werewolves we have on this list.
Well, technically speaking, they're probably not technically werewolves, because they're essentially infected by a fungus that's been turning the people of the village into the wolves. So, is it technically a werewolf? No, but they're Lycans, so close enough.
The Lycans from the Order 1886.
The game itself is like 4 hours long to beat the campaign, and like half of that is cutscenes.
So it's just a movie about werewolves, and they decided they needed to add some gameplay in between?
I mean, so the werewolves are a pretty big part of the game, and the boss fight is pretty intense, with you being separated from your weapons, and you have a single knife, and you have to fight this big old werewolf. But, overall the game wasn't good. There wasn't enough backstory to any of the werewolves to make them great. But, how many games are there out there that actually involve werewolves? Not as many as you would think.
At least 10?
Probably, even a little more. And I know what you're thinking. What about the 2020 release game called Werewolf, where you play as a werewolf? Well, I didn't know that existed until after we recorded all this footage, and I don't have the money to just buy that game.
And the werewolf enemies from Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Well, Call of Duty is a video game series, and werewolves are werewolves, so that fits the criteria of the list.
He's a generic Call of Duty zombie boss monster. Like, when you first have him, he kind of jumps in on the trees and whatnot. You can get silver bullets to do more damage than him. You kill him, he disappears for a while, comes back and attacks you again. He's just a big-ass wolf.
He's like one of the big repetitive mini-bosses, so yeah, he's nothing too special. Kind of boring.
Hey, MrTopTenList, this is the second time we've talked about Call of Duty on your channel. Oh man, imagine what happens the third time.
Well, maybe I'll just make my next video the other top 10 weapons in Call of Duty, Baka. For number 1, I like the story that surrounds this wolf. The game itself is good too, but sometimes a fun plot is the hook I need. Number 1, Big B Wolf from The Wolf Among Us. The Wolf Among Us is a mystery-solving game based on the Fables comic series, where you solve murders in a city of other fairy tale creatures in a gritty setting. There are also some quick-time events to see if you want to trigger Big B's wolf instinct in some tense situations, or stay cool as the lawful force in this city of crime. While you can continue to go forward with the story whether you decide to go feral or not, your decisions may affect some plot lines later in the game. However, Big B is not your ordinary werewolf. He's got some ties to a prolific werewolf in fiction.
You are the big bad wolf, Mr. B, as he's called. Essentially, all the fairy tale creatures came from the old world to the new world, and now they live in New York in a neighborhood called, what was it, Fairytown?
Fabletown.
Wait, is this Shrek?
This is Shrek, but in New York City.
Shrek is a masterpiece.
I think what I really love about this character, because it's a Telltale game, so like they try to bring in a lot of moral choices. And like the main choice that you have in this game is whether you go with your aggressive past, where you used to murder all these other creatures. So you are hated. You are the big bad wolf. So you have this like dark side running through you to where you could just kill them and get what you want when trying to solve this crime. But you're also running this line of trying to reform yourself, and you're trying to be a better person. I also love the fact that he has multiple levels of transformation, kind of like the younger Toguro from Yu Yu Hakusho. So, in the early parts of the game when you're fighting, you're like going 20% werewolf. You're getting a little hairier, you're getting a little scary eyes, but nothing too crazy. Later on in the game, when Tweedledee, Tweedledum, and Bloody Mary are trying to kidnap the mayor, you end up going even more werewolf. You end up going basically full werewolf. You lose your shirt and you end up just going crazy. Like, look at this. Look at this. He's transforming, he's coming, and that's when they know that they're in trouble. He's just walking forward, taking those bullets. Man, they should have brought something other than a shotgun. Can you imagine? You roll into a town with your brother with shotguns and you're just wailing on a guy. He's just walking towards you, getting hairier and hairier. My God! He keeps the pants on, he follows the pants rule. Fun fact, once you start murdering these guys, later on the game tries to make you feel guilty about murdering them. Like, you know, I'm not gonna feel guilty about it after they shot me 50 times.
They started it.
Like, I'm just gonna put it out there. But you know, just like the younger Toguro, he actually has a little extra. This isn't full werewolf. He can actually become like a full giant wolf.
Does he lose his pants then? Because at that point, he's a wolf.
He does. It's only then does he lose his pants. He's clearly the most powerful wolf at that point. This happens when he's fighting Bloody Mary and she's going ultimate mode by sending like 1,000 different Bloody Marys at him. And there's not much that he can do except for fully transforming. See, they're all getting him, and oh my god, what are you gonna do? What's he gonna do? It's time to become the big bad wolf.
And instead of just doing vicious wolf things in this form, he does the blow your house down maneuver. Excellent reference, even though it was pretty obvious.
But yeah, I mean, I think just in terms of level of transformation, he's clearly the best. Because he can go full wolf. In terms of the moral complexity of the character, he's the best. He's trying to overcome his murder past.
So by showing us that just because you're the big bad wolf doesn't mean that you're a big bad guy, Big B Wolf claws his way to the top of this list. Now, what did you think? Which werewolves were in tune with the full moon the most, and who may have been hit by the silver bullet? And which video game werewolves did we maybe forget to talk about? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.